No. Good evening. If you just joined us and you heard me say no, it's because Sanjay was asking if I had a fan on, and I don't have a fan on. Hopefully that doesn't mean that there's lots of wind, sound, noise out there in podcasting / web streaming / internet sensational show world. Welcome to the Nuvee Club Podcast. My name is Big Mike, coming to you from Long Island. Sanjay Singh from somewhere in the city. Sanjay, how are you?
I'm doing well, Big Mike. Hot, trying to stay cool. I got all three of the ACs cranking right now.
I did some filling in on our country radio station, and I did this break about people developing a game on how many times whoever hears the phrase, is it hot enough for you? Whoever hears that phrase the most wins. So, yes, people talking about the heat. The heat is on everyone's mind. And with that in mind, let's get the show started. It's the Nuvee Club Podcast. What is that? Well, it's just two guys. We really like movies. We like talking about movies. We've made some movies. We want to make more movies. And this show is not only that. It is much more. It's the Nuvee Club Podcast. I should have put that audio theme on repeat in the operating room when I was undergoing a procedure. Yesterday, for the first time, I was put under anesthesia. So at this point in my life, to have gotten this far without ever having to be put under anesthesia, it certainly was a concern of mine. Especially, they tell you everything that could possibly happen. And, I'm a fat guy, so they go, oh, well, you got, breathing, you sleep with a CPAP and you have sleep apnea. So we might put you under, you might never, ever wake up. And even if you do, you might not want to. But it was weird. So have you ever been put under anesthesia? Am I talking to a veteran, or are you a virgin as well?
Nope. Haven't had anesthesia. Have had anesthetic, but not anesthesia.
Gotcha. So you are a virgin.
Yes.
We'll just put that little clip in there. That's what people will remember from this show. I've heard many things. There's lots of videos out there on the internet of people trying to fight anesthesia, and those are funny. And TV shows count backwards from 100 or whatever. All that. It was nothing like any of that. Literally, I guess there's different kinds of anesthesia. I was told by the anesthesiologist, a very capable doctor, thank you very much, I'm still alive. He was like, well, we're going to use IV sedation. And I guess that means that there are other types of sedation. They could give you something you breathe in to knock you out. I don't know. But with the IV sedation, I'll tell you, that was primo. That worked like a charm, because I wanted to say something to the doctors as it was happening. And my thought was, as I start to feel woozy, I want to make sure I'm completely out, because I don't want to feel nothing about this procedure now, So I said, I had the words ready. Doc, now I think I feel something. And I was laying there, and all I felt was like a wave of dizziness. And I was going to say, whoa, Doc, I feel something. But I felt a wave of dizziness, and that was it. I was gone.
A chloroform to the face.
The next, what are you into? The chloroform? Oh, my God. Jeez. If there's any unsolved mysteries in the Manhattan area, not like there's any of those. Call Sanjay. It's chloroform to the face. But literally, it was a snap of the finger. The next thing I realize is I'm out of it, and the doctor is the doctor's first guy you see. He's like right in your face, like, hey, how you doing? Like, hey, you did great, which I didn't really do nothing. But the first thing I said was I was on a beach. So I do think I did dream. I think that I was dreaming, and I think that I was dreaming that I was on a beach, because the first thing I said was I was just on a beach. But yeah, I highly recommend it, man. When I was done, I was like, let's do this once a week, man. Like, not the procedure, the getting put under the anesthesia. I was also told that you're going to have like the best sleep of your life, and that was not the case that I felt. I woke up and I felt drunk. That's the way I felt. I felt drunk.
Do you have a headache?
I did not have a headache. I just felt drunk. And when I got home, I slept for like 4 or 5 hours. But I also didn't sleep well the nights leading up to it. I don't have any apprehension with things like this. But when it came to this, for some reason, I had apprehension. But yeah, it was a quick in and out procedure. $1,000,000, Doc.
You drove yourself home after?
No. So they're making a very big point. It's weird because they're like, you have to be brought home by somebody that you know. Yeah. And I'm like, all right. But like, there are lots of people in the world who don't have anyone that they know that could do that. So, all right, granted, I have a couple of friends that are retired now, so they can do it. But they made it sound like I was like, I can understand if you feel like somebody could take advantage of you, or somebody might want to have you in a incapacitated state for nefarious purposes. But who's doing that with me? No one's sitting there waiting for the moment. Listen, as soon as Big Mike don't have his wits about him, man, I'm running in there and we're going to take care of business. Actually, wait a minute. Now that I think about some of the videos we've been putting out, maybe they are out there. Maybe they are.
And I've seen that PC Richards video.
Yeah,
you look
that's
like
right. They might
you
be
were out.
going. Yeah, I might have been, as I was walking out, I saw somebody out of the corner of my eye. I was like, what is he waiting for? It's like, are you the grill daddy? Are you the grill daddy? All right, but yeah, all right. So Sanjay did not have anesthesia yet. Maybe someday. I'm sure someday.
I've picked up Lachelle quite a few times from the
for you.
hospitals after she's had anesthesia, so I'm familiar with the procedure after dosage.
Yeah.
But you sounds like you found a whole other drug you're trying to get your hands on.
What other drug? I don't even do any drug. Although, that type. Well, I don't know. Would anybody take a? Is that what you take a drug for? Would you take a drug that would just knock you out for however long?
I don't know. I haven't been taking drugs in a while, so I'm kind of sober from everything. But you take caffeine, so you're a little more exposed to that.
That's different. That's not a drug. I mean, that's a drug, but it ain't a drug. Caffeine. All right. But all right. So what were you up to this week? Tell us about your. Oh God, I was watching these videos. If you don't follow Sanjay on Instagram, follow him. Sanjay Vision. He walked 100 million miles across Manhattan or up and down Manhattan. Anyway, it sounded awful, especially in the heat. Tell everybody about it.
20 miles, not too bad. Actually, when we started Uptown, because Uptown has a lot more vegetation, it was a little cooler. Yes, it was hot, but the buildings are kind of lower. There's more open space, so you're getting a breeze. You're not inundated by heat all the times. We started at 215th Street, Inwood Park, at around 11 a.m. We got brunch first over at Inwood Farm at 10. So we had a little hour brunch, a little celebratory shot to kind of kick off the walk.
10 o'clock in the morning.
10 o'clock in the morning. Yep, some tequila.
A little early, no? All right.
It's Saturday.
Okay.
So we kick off the walk at 11. And yeah, we walked about in like 3-mile chunks. First stopped off at the Jamil house, the oldest residence. Then we had some food stops along the way. I went down through, we stopped for some catfish and Make My Fish. Stopped down through Central Park, the Upper West part of Central Park. Walked down to Columbus Circle, walked down the High Line all the way down to Battery Park City, Statue of Liberty viewpoint, the bottom of the island. So it was we had some people join us here and there along the way. So not everyone made it the whole way. The people that started with us ended with us. But some of the people that kind of came and went throughout the trip couldn't quite make the whole journey. Because of that, we were delayed a bit. We should have finished it maybe half the time. So it took us just under 12 hours. And 20 miles.
Well, it sounds terrible. Are you going to do it again?
It's not a bad. It's not bad.
Start at the Statue of Liberty, go all the way north, but do the whole thing backwards.
That would actually be worse because you'll be walking uphill the whole way. Like when you're starting at the top of the island, you're kind of walking downhill most of the way down the island. There's higher elevation, you go to a lower elevation.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the way hills work.
But that's how the city also works, the topography of the city. So
you should zigzag, go east to west, and then you really get some hills.
Oh my gosh, that would be the worst because the most severe hills actually do run from east to west, especially uptown. Yeah.
I'm familiar.
You should join us on the next one. We'll probably do it again maybe next year.
All right, listen, you get started when you get there. If I'm not there yet, you just start walking, and I'll catch up with you.
You'll be one of the people that meet up with us for a drink, and then you're like, all right, I've done a mile.
Yeah, a mile. That's ambitious. That's ambitious. What did you create this week?
So we've been working on press release for call for entries for Nukhufest for the fall. Put together a press release with a publicist. Been collaborating with a publicist on making that happen. Yeah, so we're excited to get that out. She's confident we can get some coverage. So we'll see, man. I've been trying to get the word out about Nuku and our efforts in supporting filmmakers for over a decade now, and radio silence. So we'll see if this press release gives us any pull.
I think stuff like the thing we did with Jim Bigwood last week has a real chance to resonate with the independent and small time filmmaker community, because I think there's real valuable insight, and everybody in every profession, everybody wants to be, hey, I started this and I just had such a unbelievable talent for it, and I got lucky and I got discovered, and then I became rich and famous in the blink of an eye. But obviously those stories are either fables or few and far between.
True.
So, you know, you hear from somebody who's had that much time and experience in the business and gives you a really, really valuable nugget of, hey, if you want to get in, here's a good avenue because this is where they need people. And if you really are as good as you think you are, and if you're going to rely on luck as one of your keys to success, then it doesn't really matter how you break in, just the fact that you're actually in. But I'm looking forward to that press release. It was actually earlier today. We had wrestling legends, the Hardy Boys, or they're called in TNA right now, the Hardys, or the Hardy Brothers. They've been in with every wrestling company over their careers. They're kind of the more elder statesmen than when I was watching wrestling 20 years ago, when they were really, really, really huge and innovators in wrestling, the tables, ladders, and chair matches. So I cut a little promo with them for their upcoming show, TNA Slammiversary, coming to the UBS Arena July 20th. The Hardys will be fighting. We also had Casey Navarro in studio. So I put that video together quick before we got on here, and I just posted it to my Instagram at The Feast Man, and I tagged them in it, and they were really cool guys. Everybody from that organization is first class. So
They're still wrestling. They're still doing the thing.
Still wrestling. They're kind of like, they're looking at this as possibly their last big to-do before they call it quits. I mean, obviously, they're a little older than me, a couple of years older than me. I don't know how much punishment you could put your body through. All I had was a very routine, small-time medical procedure, and I'm like, oh, am I gonna survive this? Am I gonna recuperate from this? And those guys are gonna go jump off a 25th ladder.
These guys are professional stuntmen, essentially.
Yeah, they definitely are, and they're really genuinely good people with a really, really good story. Yeah. So there'll be more interviews and stuff with them to come. But that's what I was that's what I was working on. What are your thoughts on diversity in media? What does diversity mean to you? Is that a question directed at me, or is that a question directed to the world?
It's to us. It's for a topic of discussion for us. I think we both come from diverse backgrounds or unique backgrounds. And I think, when you look at kind of the history of New York and the people that have made New York kind of culturally rich, the concept of diversity has changed over the years. And I know we would both have unique experiences to what that means.
Concept of diversity has changed over the years. What exactly do you mean by that?
So I think that, when you're looking at kind of the start of New York City, you're looking at early 1600s, and you're looking at...
we're really going back. Okay.
You're looking at the Dutch. Yeah, you're looking at the Dutch, then you're looking at the English, then you're looking at kind of Irish, you're looking at Italian, then you're looking at Puerto Rican, Jews. Then you start getting into kind of other demographics. You're looking at Asian and Indian and kind of other cultures. And I think anytime a new culture or ethnicity kind of becomes part of the fabric of New York City, there's always kind of a clash. It's always kind of considered a new broadening of that diversity. And sure, it's a little more prominent with people of color, and it's more severe with people of color. I mean, Black people have been around New York City since the beginning. They have their own experience with diversity, but I think me and you, we have our own unique experience as well. That's worth talking about.
Yeah, I think there's a philosophy in Star Trek that one of the alien races, it's kind of their whole thing. It's called the Idic, the Vulcan Idic, infinite diversity in infinite combinations, and that's probably one of the more valuable things that I've absorbed from something out of entertainment is an appreciation for diversity in cultures, diversity in every way that you can absorb the differences, because I think it's the differences that really elevate your entire life experience. Not unlike the way I view stories being told. Like, I think it's really important to absorb as many stories and as many books and as many movies and as many tales that you can, because I think the more diverse the absorption of those materials, that you're really just getting told experiences. And the more diverse and the more plentiful the experiences and the stories and the cultures that you absorb, the more rich the overall life experience is. And there's things that can help you in all these different stories. There's things that can help you in every culture. There's things that can help you in exposing yourself to a high level of diversity. And it's not only within the city. Since 2002, I've traveled to every state in the United States of America, and there is extreme differences in culture, state to state, small town to big city, East Coast to West Coast, the Midwest, North to South. And unless you go to those places, unless you interact with those people, unless you live and put your feet down in those cultural environments for a period of time, you're not ever really truly going to understand what those people's life experience is. And even if you're there for a period of time, it's still not going to really show you. But you can absorb that information. It's important. I grew up in a very diverse neighborhood in Queens. I was a minority in my school and in my classroom. In a Catholic school, I think at one point, if I had 30 kids in the class, I think there were probably 3 to 5 Caucasian people, boys and girls, and then it was everything else under the rainbow that was part of that class. And some of them weren't even Catholic, but their parents wanted them to get that education from the Catholic school. So I've been exposed to diversity, starting at a very young age. And to me, it was just normal. It was just normal. So I didn't even have what I thought would be a classic experience as, just a white kid in Queens. I'm sure there were people that had much different experience.
Yeah. My experience is the complete opposite. Growing up in Suffolk County, Long Island, there were no Indians at the time. Now there are a lot more there now. But when I was coming up, it was predominantly white and black students, and there was very little Asian representation, probably less than a handful of Indian kids in my class. So I really didn't have a good feeling of representation or diversity growing up. And when I moved to the city is when I really started to appreciate that, because in New York City, you cannot avoid diversity. You're always confronted with somebody different, of a different background, of a different way of life, walk of life. And like you said, you have to kind of immerse yourself in confronting diversity in order to accept everyone's different backgrounds and everyone's stories, to be rich in those experiences. That's one of the benefits, I think, of being in New York City. I haven't been to all 50, but I've been to 40 of the states. And I would say that in a lot of those states, you can kind of evade diversity. You can get away with not confronting people that are unlike you. And I think that actually prevents you from having as many diverse experiences and richness of experiences.
Yeah, it's easier to avoid people who aren't like you, especially when you could pretty much avoid people, depending on the parts where you are. If you're in places in Maine, there's more bison than there are. There's more moose than there are people. In Montana and most of the Midwest states, North Dakota. Think about the population densities, and I understand that, and I don't necessarily know how many people move there for those experiences. A lot of people seem to be, they live there because that's where they grew up. But I'm curious from your experience. So you're in Suffolk County. When you were younger, there weren't many people that were ethnically like you, but I would imagine your parents, in terms of media, they expose you to your cultural media. Like when you were younger, did you know the difference between sitting down to watch a Bollywood movie and a non-Bollywood movie? Was it obvious when you were a kid, or you're just oh, there's a bunch of movies, and some of them are with all Indian casts, and they seem to break out into a dance every 5 minutes, and the other ones are Shawshank Redemption.
No, I definitely understood the experience because they're in subtitles. So you gotta read the movie. But I think what a little more nuanced about the kind of diversity I experienced was that watching Bollywood movies or Indian flicks was maybe a feeling of a cultural identity that I could subscribe to that was maybe unique. What I really realized as I got older was that I'm Guyanese, 100% Guyanese. So that is an essentially West Indian. That's Caribbean. That is removed. That is removed from East Indian culture, from Bollywood, and because of that,
northeast coast of South America.
And because of that kind of removal, I've actually faced interesting conflicts with people from East India, because they face prejudice from those communities, because they can kind of tell that I'm not East Indian, that I'm West Indian, I'm Caribbean. And so even in the communities where I was supposed to find some sort of alliance experience, I never really did. And it wasn't until, last few years that I started to find representation on social media from Guyanese people, because there's no Caribbean representation in the media. Online, on social media, Guyanese people, Caribbean people are creating their own channels, their own content. And only through that mode have I actually been able to find true representation of the kind of diverse experiences I've had.
Well, I think that's the biggest difference between you and I, because for you, like you said, if someone from East India saw you, they knew immediately that you were not from East India. When they look at me, they can't tell. They're like, we don't know where Big Mike is from.
Yeah. Yeah, then that's part of,
a joke that didn't go anywhere. Sorry, folks. You're supposed to laugh.
Well, he's obviously from somewhere that is not.
I remember when working for your family, working for your dad was one of the most valuable parts of that experience was the exposure to Guyanese culture through your dad, through you and your family, and then the rest of the other people that we worked with. There was a lot of that as well. And I remember having thoughts of like, hey, if things really go terribly for me here in New York, I think like moving to Guyana should be on my list of places to go, because I think I'd do very well there. I think I'd do very well there. I think I have really never met someone from Guyana that hasn't liked me or thought that I was just a riot. And I'm like, yeah, I think I'd do very well in Guyana. I think, and most of the Caribbean, actually everywhere in the Caribbean. Because now, since that time, I've been able to travel a lot.
That's true.
That's Jamaica, Barbados, the Bahamas, Grenada, Turks and Caicos, everywhere, Curacao. They respond very favorably to the big man. So
Caribbean people have a
different place.
Yeah. People have a very kind of socially acceptable kind of approach. They're not very high strung like a lot of other cultures are. And I think, because they sense that nature in you, your exposure to so many cultures and kind of your comfortability with them, they reciprocate that.
Yeah, I certainly do feel it. Yeah. And it is nice to see that, that type of attitude of embracing other cultures is usually shared. You could find that in a lot of places. But we won't talk about the Middle East at this point in the conversation, because they got some things to deal with out there. Crazy things going down. Let's see. Personal aspirations.
We missed the Nuvee spotlight.
Oh, where did we? Sorry, I missed. Hello, and welcome to the Nuvee Club Podcast. Let's go to the Nuvee spotlight. Maybe I shouldn't wear these opaque shades like that. Representation Matters. Is that the name of the movie? You have a question mark.
That's the name of the film, the short film.
Oh, okay, the short film, Nuvee Spotlight, Representation Matters. Or I should say, Representation Matters?
Yes, exactly. And so this film came out during the pandemic. I figured it would be good to talk about now, exclusively available on Nuku. And before Pride Month is over, we've been talking about diversity, we've been talking about representation. I thought it'd be good to talk about this film because it's a comedy, short comedy, very well made, and it really kind of focuses on the deliberation process that goes into the minds of creative executives or just studio executives when they have to decide how to approach or navigate diversity. So the film was directed by A.W. Scott. The synopsis is: a biracial female screenwriter learns how a producer really thinks about representation on screen. 10-minute comedy short.
I have not seen it, but it certainly sounds like something I'd be interested in seeing. I think that we probably don't give enough credit to what it must be like in those high-level boardrooms and having those conversations, especially, now you're trying to please everyone. And we learned at a very young age, you can't please all the people all the time. And you probably can't please all the people, even some of the time. I think as a society, we're quick to jump on an issue. Somebody puts this person in that role. Somebody out there is butthurt about that. And then people get butthurt because that person's butthurt. And you can't even imagine the choices that have to be made at a higher level. And you kind of just make your choice and hope for the best.
I think the studios would actually do themselves a service if they employed more executives of color. I think, yes, how those decisions trickle down will always be perceived and argued, But I think if you actually start at the top and you have more executives of color, you have more representation at the top, then there can be a little more responsibility placed throughout the chain rather than just in particular demographics or particular parts of the hierarchy.
When you were talking, the first thought occurred to me. I was like, I would love to be like a fat representative on some movie board that's going to be, deal with weight issues. And then I would be a terrible person for that position. I would be terrible because they would do something and be like, we're going to have this happen. He's going to sit on a chair and it's going to explode. And I'll be like, that's great. Leave it in. I would be like, it's like, so they tie a hot dog to a stick and they hold it over his head. And then he's trying to, navigate the streets of Manhattan by tracing a donut on a stick or something. I'd be like, brilliant. It's brilliant.
There's a show there, actually.
There's a show. Actually, a scene like that I was in a short with Lenny Walker, the comedian, big New York City comedian guy, does lots of different things. And he wrote this short called The Walker. And the premise was that, a lot of comedians walk dogs, for a fee to make ends meet when they're doing their stand-up. And he's the comedian that there's an old lady that wants that her son walked the way that a dog would be walked, and I was the son. I was the one that was being walked around.
On all fours?
No.
Okay.
Kind of harness. You never saw it? How come it's not on Nuku?
I don't know. Talk to Lenny.
But there were lots of gags like that. There were lots of gags of like we're walking and then I stop and look in the bakery window. Then we're riding a seesaw. But like I'm on one side and he's on the other. He's always up in the air. So I would not be a good representation of the overweight community on a film board. So
I think you would actually. I think you would. I think you're
I would
not
say
giving
everything
this
is
enough
funny.
credit. Yeah. Well,
Like-
no, I don't think. I'd be curious. I'd be curious to know.
All right. I mean, I don't like levels of censorship on that kind of stuff. I think ultimately, if it's art and the artist wants to push the boundaries, if he accepts the risk, then all right, go for it.
I think that's actually what would make you a good executive.
Oh, well, good. All right. There you go. How do you like that? Let's move to movies of the week. We're getting close to our timing. We'll have to come back to personal aspirations and Hollywood promises. That sounds like chapter 3 of Sanjay's new book.
Sounds like my personal
process.
Sounds like my personal aspirations. Coming back to them next week.
Favorite recent film? I picked The Raven, which came out in 2012. Do you know anything about it?
No, actually.
So The Raven stars John Cusack, and it's a fictional story centered around the last days of Edgar Allan Poe's life. And what I loved about it is that it's very creative. It takes elements of his stories, his poems and his novels and his short stories, and it works them into what is seemingly a real life murder mystery around the last few days of Edgar Allan Poe's life. Famously, Edgar Allan Poe was found dead on a bench and having passed away. And this, along with a couple of other murders in that time, use elements of Poe's stories in a real life example. So it was a good ride. It was interesting. I liked it a lot, and it made an impression on me. The Raven came out in 2012.
Nice. I'll have to check it out. Edgar Allan Poe. My recent Nuvee favorite film is going to be Searching, and that is the prequel to Missing, which are two films that are kind of shot in this social media style where you're using the screen grabs of messaging apps and social media apps and front cameras of devices and webcams and kind of an amalgamation of all of these real life situations to tell a narrative about a father in search of his daughter. So the synopsis is David Kim becomes desperate when his 16-year-old daughter Margot disappears and an immediate police investigation leads nowhere. He soon decides to search the one place that no one else has, Margot's laptop. Hoping to trace her digital footprints, David contacts her friends and looks at photos and videos for any possible clues to her whereabouts. It's got horror, thriller, mystery, action, psychological, thriller, suspense, all of that wrapped up in an indie film for a budget of $880,000. And this is a highly successful film, highly rated on Rotten Tomatoes, on the works. This was a film that, it's very kind of difficult to get this whole screen capture thing and webcam thing right. But these guys did a really good job at doing it.
If I'm going to watch it, should I watch Searching first or Missing first?
You should watch Searching first. Yeah, Searching came out first, and Missing came out after. They're both good films. Searching is on Stars, I think, so it's easily accessible.
I will have to take a look. Before we wrap it up, any final words for our fellow hairy friends out there?
We're going to be taking a 2-week hiatus. I know everyone out there will be missing us, but go out there, enjoy the summertime, enjoy the heat, stay hydrated, and try to stay cool.
That was the other thing. That was it. In my radio break when I was on the country station, I said the game is count how many times you hear, is it hot enough for you? Or someone tells you to stay hydrated, and whoever tallies up the most wins. I swear to God. That was real. I also want to throw in my favorite talk break of my shows. I filled in Friday and Monday. There's it's a country radio station, so we play Jelly Roll. And one of Jelly Roll's songs is called I'm Not Okay. And it opens, the first line of it is, I'm not okay, I'm barely getting by. So I led into it, very short ramp, because you only really talk over the ramp like 4 seconds. And I said something like, if you're wondering what someone driving around Long Island without an air conditioner is thinking right now, I am not okay.
That's a good lead-in.
It was great. Like, I was like, that's a winner. That's a winner. That's a catch.
When I tuned in, I was like, okay, 15 minutes. Okay, Mike's coming on. And then he comes on for 5-10 seconds. And I'm like, oh, what the hell? I got to listen for another 10 minutes.
That is contemporary music radio. And if you think about it, it makes sense because the audience is bouncing in and out. And if you're listening to if you're expecting to hear music and you tune it in and there's talking, like research shows, this doesn't really matter who's talking, whether it's a commercial or the jock. If there's no music behind it and I'm just in there gibbering, telling a story about hanging out with Sanjay Singh, walking 20 miles across Manhattan for no good reason, they'll turn it off. No matter how funny it is, it doesn't matter. Like, they just hear talking and it's not. So the goal, at least what I've been taught, is it's conversational. And you just want to add in little, just pepper in a little bit of spice in between the songs. And you're trying not to get people not to change the channel. So don't say something that's going to get them to change the channel. So, you want to be funny, you want to be witty, you want to be informative, you want to be, make it sound local. And people said, I dig. I mean, I've been doing it a while, filling in here and there. But yeah, thank you for tuning in.
So if you want a little more Big Mike than just some pepper and spice, you want the full meal, tune in 2 weeks when we're back on the air.
That's right. Yeah, so you get more than the full meal. You can join us, 2 weeks, you said. Follow us at Nuvee Club on Instagram, at Nukhufest on YouTube and Spotify. And remember, if you haven't done so yet, if you want to see some of these Nuvee spotlights or other great content, you got to create your free profile account at nuku.com and start watching Nuvees immediately. For Sanjay Singh and all of us here at the Nuvee Club Podcast, this is Big Mike saying stay cool.